Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. Dan Crawl here on July 30th. Have a first today. This is my first of two podcasts that I'll be recording on this date. This morning, I have Doug Pooch on here with me. He's a soon-to-be 2025 West Hancock Hall of Famer. And then, probably right after I get this downloaded and posted, I'll start recording another episode with Jesse Barker, a good friend of mine, West Hancock grad from 2007. He's my Hall of Fame filmer, and like I said, just a good buddy. He works nights, so we had to get an episode in the afternoon. All right, Doug, welcome. Doug here is a state champion track and field athlete from Coach Bob Sanger's first runner-up and first state title team. How you doing today? Oh,
Appreciate what you're doing.
you bet. Yep. And we've had a little bit of audio issues, but for the most part, it comes in nice and clear. So every once in a while, I might have to stop you and have you repeat something. Otherwise, I think we should be good. All right, this podcast would not be possible or worth it without my sponsors, like always. In the honoring legends section, we have Billy Dahlman, Paul Hauge, and the Hartman family. Thanks to those people that have generously given that $400 lifetime sponsorship fee to honor those people. And then my lifetime sponsors, we have Levi Don Trucking, Window World, Doug and Kathy Zool, Pritchard's Auto, Ewan Funeral Home and Monument Company, Triple B's Food Trucks, Swenson's Hardware, Zach and Chris Schlugger, Nick Schmidt, Kelly Real Estate, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruises and Mojo Productions, Mike Muth Welding, Stacy and Carrie Gopel, Maine Salon, Jason Gardner with Whiffles Hybrids, the Britt Seed Company, Deemer Realty, the Benning Family, the Britt Bar and Grill, Trolson Auto Parts, Cliff Howlett, the Britt Vet Clinic, and Richard Woobin with B&B Egg Sales. Again, those people gave $400 to be a lifetime sponsor for the Bob and Linda Sanger Legacy Fund. And like always, the Sanger Legacy Fund supports the Hall of Fame. Again, we got Doug on here. He's a Hall of Famer this year. We give out scholarships for seniors. We support any athletic or activity funds at West Hancock and any other community outreach programs that are in need of assistance. If you want to sponsor the podcast, get a hold of me. You can get on Facebook Messenger is the easiest way, or you can go to sangerstrong.com if you just want to donate to the Sanger Legacy Fund. Way back when segment here, giving some past episodes some spotlight. 50 episodes ago, on episode 89, we talked to the 1973 offensive linemen on the Britt football state championship team. A lot of Doug's teammates and classmates there on that team. And then 100 episodes ago, I thought this was fitting that we're doing kind of a track episode. Another all-time great track runner at Britt, John Weiland, and he was a Hall of Famer 2 years ago now. So perfect timing for both of those. All right, Doug, let's start with some introductions. Tell everybody who you are, what's keeping you busy these days. We talked off air. You retired, but you're pretty much just as busy as you were. So tell everyone what you're doing these days.
I do keep busy, and that's always been my MO. And I don't let much grass grow around me. And um, I'm 69 now, so last time I ran track for Britt was 51 years ago. And since then, I went to Iowa State and on a track scholarship and ran track mostly half mile up to the mile at Iowa State, lettered in cross country and track at Iowa State. They had some really good coaches there as well. That kept me out of trouble for the most part while going to school. And after that, I got married to my high school sweetheart from Britt, Lori Hildebrand. People know Lori Hildebrand, the farm south of Britt. And we were high school sweethearts. We started dating each other when we were sophomores. So now we're celebrating 48 years married and everything. So went to Iowa State and then got interested in agriculture. Brings back some memories of going to the ag class at Britt High School. Alan McPhee was our ag instructor. We had a lot of good farm kids in the ag program at that time. And I didn't live on the farm at Britt, but I came from a farm around Humboldt. And when we moved to Britt, before my sophomore year, my dad was the assistant manager at the co-op, and then he became the co-op manager as well there at Britt. So I was part of the ag community there as well. And one of my memories of ag class always was we always gave Mr. McPhee a really hard time as students. We always joked about him because he was from Kentucky originally, had a little bit of an accent, and one of the jokes he used to tell was always, "You Iowa farmers never really did figure things out." He says, "You grow corn and you feed it to cows and pigs." He says, "In Kentucky," he says, "we drink our corn." And we always thought that was pretty funny. He was a pretty cool guy, and we learned a lot in ag class. So, but anyway, went to Iowa State, got into agriculture. Didn't know what to study exactly, but we did have a night. Actually, Dan, it was at Buffalo Center. They had ag kids go up to Buffalo Center one night, and Natris was the ag
Yep.
instructor up there, a very, very top-notch ag instructor, and he had Iowa State professors come in for kind of a career night or a pre-college night, and got us interested in ag career, and ag education is what I decided to go into, and that's what one of the instructors was up at that Buffalo Center career night or pre-college night. So I went to ag ed because it's a general agriculture program. I had to study animal science, agronomy, ag business, ag mechanics, and then all the teacher socialization and psychology and everything that teachers have to go through as well. So I did student taught, but like most guys in ag ed, they really didn't want to teach too bad. They really wanted to get into agriculture of some kind, and I end up getting an internship for 3 summers with a seed company, and that really got me started in the seed business, and I've been in the seed business ever since. I got my first full-time job with Asgrow Seed Company as a district manager and then a regional manager in Nebraska. Lori and I got married. We moved to Nebraska, worked 3 states out there for 6 years, and then moved back to the Des Moines area. And I was the national sales training manager for Asgrow Seed Company. Took me all over the country, and a lot of travel, a lot of training, a lot of great relationships there. I was with Asgrow for 17 years. And then I started working for Pioneer here in Johnston, Iowa, and I was a development manager for one of the product lines. And then I was the manager of all the visitors that came to Pioneer campus, and managed a team of individuals and administrative people that handled all the visitors from not only the United States, but pretty near every country in the world. And I got stories on that one I could tell you too from people all over the world. But it was fun. And then I left there and went to a company owned by Monsanto called Channel, and I was there for 10 years after 12 years at Pioneer. And I was managed district sales managers in the eastern part of the state. And then that came to I went to Wiffles Hybrids 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now. Kind of was at that point in my career where I said, what do I want to do for the next 9 years? You know, when you're about 60 years old, you get to thinking about that. And I said, I'd like to work for a family-owned, independent seed company. And there's not a whole lot of those left anymore. I'll just kind of my preaching here, but there's a few good ones out there. And I decided to pursue a couple of those companies, and I did get a good offer from Wiffles Hybrids, and that has been a great fit. They're a big company in the Central Corn Belt, and they have people in the management that understand farmers and understand seed corn. In my previous jobs, I always had to tell some of my bosses which end the combine the corn goes in and which end it comes out. And it was about that bad, but not with Wiffles. So that's been a good thing. And I did retire officially last September, but I'm still selling seed to a bunch of customers. And I partnered up with one of my dealers, and we're having a lot of fun with that. So keep me pretty busy on the
Sounds like
work
it,
side.
yeah. And we were joking, hence why we're doing this at 8 o'clock in the morning. You're like, I'm semi-retired, but I'm pretty busy, so 8 o'clock it is. And I'm like, let's go. So here we
That's
are.
right. I got to get. Yeah, Lori and I get up at 5:15 every morning, and most mornings she about every morning she goes works out with a personal trainer every day from 6 o'clock to 7, and I tag along and do my routine on the workout circuit, and try to keep healthy, and fortunately we're both in great shape, I think,
Yeah,
uh, and healthy, and like to do things. So, yep,
good.
got to get going.
Yep, my brother's in the seed business too, part time with Ag Performance up in Buffalo Center, and I
Okay.
would ask you some specific egg questions, but whenever he tells me stuff, I'm just like, okay, okay. I teach
That's good.
fractions, and we don't have much to talk about. So I've learned a little bit, but I'm still kind of like I've lived in Iowa my whole life. I've just never been in that world. So, but you talk about Wayne Natras from Buffalo Center. My dad would be a couple years younger than you, but he wasn't even an FFA guy, and he always talked about how that Buffalo Center FFA program was one of the best in the state. And sometimes
It really was.
got some national exposure as well for some of the stuff he did. So, heard a lot of stories about him as well. So,
Yeah, that was very true. Buffalo Center had a powerhouse of a program, and we were always in the same sub-state and district or sub-district and district as them, and it was hard to get advanced on because they were so good in everything they
yeah,
did. Yeah.
yeah. And Buffalo, when I was growing up, their FFA program was still pretty good. They had an amazing choir program. I think they had like 15 kids in the entire high school that were not in choir. And then you come over to West Hancock, I'm pretty sure we only had 15 kids that were in choir. It was just
Big
night and day
difference.
different what mattered to a community or a school just 30 minutes apart. You know, we've always been more
Yeah,
athletics based, and that's fine. And some schools are more ag or music based, and that's fine as well. It's just funny that so close together, same conference, and there's just such different
cultures.
expectations and priorities. So,
Right.
but all right. So before we dig in, we're gonna just talk some sports here from your time at Britt. You are an inductee into the class of 2025 for the West Hancock Athletics Hall of Fame. I called you. I usually do those in late December, early January because we have the meetings all done, give you plenty of time to prepare for getting to the event. What did it mean to you to hear that you're going to be inducted into the class of 2025?
Really pleased to get the call, as everybody is, and uh, just I was kind of hoping maybe to get it 1 year earlier because that would have been 50 years after we had our state championship team in track, and I got the state titles and things like that. But now it's 51 years, so time goes on, and it seems like yesterday when some of those things had happened. But it was really an honor. Um, Perhaps I'd lobby for the whole team of class of 74 that we won the state championship team in track that spring, running away with it literally. And because that'd never been done at Britt before.
Hmm.
That was the first track championship that we had ever had at Britt. And we mopped up. I mean, we had some really talented runners on our team, and a few field events. We weren't known very well for our field events, but we had some really top-notch runners. You know, some of the same athletes that were wrestlers, some of the same athletes were basketball players,
Yep.
and great football players of our class.
Yep.
So I would lobby
Oh yeah,
for the
and
whole team to
I was
run.
we were talking a little about the history of our Hall of Fame. We have the class of 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. That's six classes. We still have several state championship teams and a ton of state runner-up teams that aren't in yet because we have so much success in our schools between
Yeah.
Britt, Kanawha, and West Hancock. We're like, where do you start? Where do you end? Like it's just we're gonna have 20 to 25 more years easily of solid classes, and we still have teams winning right now. It's, we have all these championship football teams and some track teams of recent years. It's crazy. We just the success we have at our little school.
Yeah, it is amazing. And because you talk to people from other towns, and maybe they've never had a championship team ever in
Yeah.
any sport. And
Yep.
we've got lots of multiples, so that's cool.
Yeah, we're running out of trophy case space right now is our problem. I redid that last summer, and there's really not a lot of wiggle room unless you start either you have to build a new one, and we just did that not that long ago, or you take out some like conference title plaques. I don't want to, you never want to do that. We got to find
Yeah,
room to expand, I think, at this point. That's the exciting part. So, you already kind of answered this question, Doug. You only went to Britt for 3 years. You came before your sophomore year. You
yeah.
said your dad was the manager of the co-op. Uh, how was that for you having to move kind of mid high school? Were you excited about it? Were you dreading it?
I'll tell you a little story about that. My dad was working at a co-op outside of Badger, and then he got the call to work up there at Britt, and so we knew it was going to happen in about 6 months or before that. We moved just in August before school started, but we knew about it about 6 months earlier because he was driving back and forth. So I was watching Britt kind of off the side, kind of from a distance, and actually there was Humboldt relays, and Britt went to Humboldt relays in 1971. And so I was just keeping an eye on Britt, what the runners was, and I remember seeing a few faces that I remember from school, like Skip Miller and some Dummets and
Yeah.
other ones that were running at the Humboldt relays, and they had a few good runners, but the team wasn't very deep at that time. And I was coming from Humboldt, where track was a prominent sport. I had my older brother was a great half miler. My future brother-in-law was unbelievable half miler in my eyes, and they were running sub 2 minutes half miles, and they had three or four or five of those kids in Humboldt that could run that. They had a great track program, and so I kind of looked at Britt and I thought, oh, we got some work to do here, and I got the old yearbook out. Lori had a yearbook from 1971, and they had some success. They had some top tier finishes, but they didn't have a lot of titles or anything like that. So it was it was good to move. I mean, it was okay to move. It didn't bother me. I'm kind of outgoing and gregarious, I guess. So made friends pretty quick, and a lot of people were good. It was kind of fun because we didn't get there till late August or get registered or something. I don't know. And I remember one of my first days at class or first week at class, I had to share a locker with a senior.
Hmm.
I was a sophomore, and there was a senior because I came in late. He was supposed to have his own locker, but then I had to share with him. I think it was Craig Lear or something like that.
Okay.
Uh, that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a funny story because I'd come back to my locker every once in a while at that fall, and there was this young lady that was waiting for Craig. She was dating him a little bit, and I thought, she's kind of a nice looking girl, and got to talking to her, and here it was Lori Hildebrand, and we didn't really start dating until the spring, but we kept getting kind of tossed together and close together, and I guess it was just meant to be
Yeah.
that Lori and I were going to be together because we kept getting together. We were the prom attendants or whatever, and you name it. I mean, we were together just by happenstance, and we ended up dating for quite a while, getting married. We've got kids, and so I can say that moving during high school is okay. It
Yeah.
works
Good.
out okay.
It worked out for you. How'd that work out for your locker buddy, though? Was he mad at you for stealing the girl?
Well, I can't remember if he ever really had a. I see. It wasn't. I didn't start dating her till later, so it was
Yeah.
okay. So it was all right.
Yeah, wait till the locker situation ended, then announce your, status.
Yeah,
But yeah, like
exactly.
nowadays it'd be your Facebook status, relationship status. Back then it was just, by the way, we're dating. So
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right.
make
So
make sure he's graduated and gone before you make it too official. So
yes,
uh,
right. So
yeah,
it worked out right. We joke about it every once in a while, Lori and I do, and comes from a great family. You remember the Hildebrand south of town, and farmers and a great family, and Leanne Hildebrand and Margie Hildebrand and the younger brother David, and they were all great people, and still love them to death today. So
yep.
you bet.
So you guys get back to Britt every once in a while then, or that area? I know you said your mom's back in the Humboldt area, is what you mentioned before we recorded. Some of them still in
Right.
the area you go see?
We get to see Lori's still got some cousins and uncles and aunts in the Britt area, so Britt to Garner area. So we get up there every once in a while and get together with them, some family reunions and Christmas time or something. But my folks, my dad passed away when he was 57, so my mom remarried and they live and Humboldt on the original farm for the Kirchhoff family.
Yeah.
And she's 91, and I saw her last night at the sweet corn feed here in Des Moines, and she's doing great. So
Good.
she's doing great. So
Good.
some people might remember my mom Bev. She was a teller at the bank.
Okay.
And so everybody knows the teller at the bank in those days because nobody had mobile banking, so I had to go in to see the teller. So my mom was a teller at the First State Bank, I think it is. So
Nice. Yep. And with all that family back in the Britt area, Hall of Fame, like I said, August 29th, football
you're right.
game, and then afterwards at the Britt Golf Course. So hopefully they all come out and see you get inducted. So, all right,
That'd be great.
track was your main sport. We're gonna quickly dig into your other three sports, and you said moving to high school wasn't bad, and a lot of it's probably because you were an athlete, you were involved in things, so you got to know kids pretty quick and help them on the athletic fields, and that helps make friends, I know, pretty quick too. So, basketball, you were a 2 year starter. Who was the basketball coach then, and what kind of success did you guys have on the court?
Timmerman was our coach, and he was probably a better coach than we were as a team. I must admit. Uh, we had the same guys playing football as played basketball, and you would think that we had some real good athletes and stuff, but basketball is such a team sport and a timing sport that I remember our senior year. Since the season went long with the playoff and the championship game, if my memory serves me right, we had two or three practices before our first conference game. That was it. And
Yeah,
so, and the other teams were out to get us in basketball after what we did to them in football. And we would hang tough with them a little while with our athleticism, but our timing and our teamwork really didn't get a chance to develop. Timmerman did his best to corral us guys, but uh, we really celebrated a few wins each season. We did not have a high win percentage, so
yeah,
that was good training and stuff for us. I mean, we were athletes. We wouldn't get tired out, but we just didn't have enough practice time and skill set for basketball. At least I couldn't hit a broadside of a barn as far as basketball. I could guard anybody, and
yeah,
I could outrun anybody and out quickness anybody, but I couldn't hit a free throw. So
yeah.
heck,
And I talked to Jim Timmerman about you for baseball, basketball, and track. I know he wasn't your track coach, but he just remembers watching you. And don't have Coach Sanger to, tell his stories about you. And so Timmerman was about the next best thing there. And he
right?
said basketball and baseball, great defensive player in both
Yes,
sports. And maybe that was his nice way of saying
I couldn't
not
hit a
as great on
baseball. I couldn't
offense,
hit.
great on defense, So
That's right. That's
yep.
right.
Kind of, yeah, I could get into that with some students at school and how we word things about, yeah,
You know,
they have good
really good
handwriting, but
defender.
that's about it, So, baseball here, also Coach Timmerman,
Yeah.
and that was kind of his forte was coaching baseball. He's a fellow Hall of Famer in the West Hancock Hall of Fame. Your senior year in baseball, you had possibly the most successful, if not one of the two or three most successful baseball seasons in school history. You guys went 18-2 and you won the North Iowa Conference Championship. Made it to the sectional finals, which I believe was at Bancroft St. John's, or it was one of the private schools up there, I believe, got you in the sectional finals, if I remember my stories from Coach Timmerman. Talk about winning that baseball title and making a deep run and playing for Coach Timmerman there as well.
My senior year. I was not on that team.
You didn't play your senior year?
I didn't play my senior year, and they went on to great things, and that's maybe why they went to great things because I was not on that team. But the reason is state track meet and everything in the spring, won the state titles and everything, and literally at the state track meet at Drake Stadium, my the Iowa State coach hunted me down, Iowa State track coach. Because back then we didn't sign letters of intent early, or I mean, I don't know. I was so focused on track and girls that I didn't even think about my next step. I get real focused on a task, and I got to do it. And I was going to win that state title and help the team win the state title. And literally after I won the half mile, set a state record, the Iowa State coach hunted me down in the stands. And he gone up to me, and Coach Bergen said, son, he said, fine race. He said, have you thought about where you're going to college? And I says, yeah, I think I really want to go to Iowa State. And he says, great. He said, have you enrolled yet? I said, no, I haven't. And this is my fault. And he says, come on down Monday. We'll get you enrolled. We'll get you a room. And I'll get you a scholarship. And I says, okay, I'll be there Monday morning. And they put us on a training routine. And I was training, I had to run at least 10-mile road runs each day for the summer. And I remember I said, okay, I got to earn money for the rest of my schooling costs. And so I helped slip that concrete between Britt and Stilson out there. That what it was a new elevator going up out there. Where I worked 8 to 12 hour days pushing concrete, digging holes, and earning money to help pay for college. So
Mhm.
I skipped my senior year of baseball,
Oh man.
and they did great, and that was a good thing. They did a great thing.
I was unaware of that. I got to update some Hall of Fame notes
Oh,
for next month, that's for sure. So, did you enjoy playing baseball those other years?
oh yeah, that was good. We it was the same group of guys that worked and in the other sports and a few different ones. There was always different guys in each sport that would excel and really fit their skills. But we had fun with baseball, but it was a little frustrating. It was a little bit like basketball. We just didn't win near enough as what we thought we should. Uh, but baseball was really fun. I was, like I said, I was a good defender. I could run down a baseball in the outfield, or I could run the bases if I ever got on. But I just could not hit a fastball or a curveball. Could not.
And those are about the two options most high school pitchers are throwing. So
That's about it. Yeah.
yeah, I hear you. I played up through my eighth grade year, and I'm pretty sure I have a school record for most consecutive strikeouts. I don't think I ever got on base unless I got hit. I was swinging at pretty much anything that came my way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'd say,
get it.
okay, just swing.
I get it. So
Yeah.
football. Let's get to your kind of two most successful sports here. Football.
Yeah.
You guys won the 1973 state championship. As we all know, I've done several podcasts, and this team's just kind of that team that's in lower in our school's history. Kind of like you talked about, the first track team that won state as well. They get talked about a lot because they were the first. 1973, that team went 10-0. You were an honorable mention selection on the North Iowa Conference team. My question to you, there were 17 other Eagles who were all conference that year. Can you name them?
Ooh, man. Good play. Had to been Deemer and Swears and Stevenson and Klein and Swenson and Swanson and whew, maybe even Zroslake. Uh, man, I can't even think of them all.
Rick
There
Klein, Bob Swears, Jim Deemer, Mitch Swanson, Gary Buns,
Very good
Mark
friends.
Stevenson, Paul Hamilton, Lou Banker, Dave
Yeah.
Howlett, Daryl Michelson, Mike Sankey, Dave Zaroslik, Mike Muth, John Swenson, Dan Hampy, Doug Pooch, Dave Betcher, and Jim Miller. That's quite the list.
That's a bunch. That's a bunch of people.
Yeah, and you guys darn near platooned for a lot of that season, so most guys only played one way. So pretty
Most
much
of the team.
almost
Most,
everyone that played and started for Coach Sanger that year was all conference except for just a couple guys. That's pretty
and
impressive.
that was probably just a political thing. They had to give it to somebody else, you know.
Yeah.
So we had, like, we did platoon. I think we only had 25, maybe 24 people on the team, and everybody started
Mhm.
and everybody played and contributed. That was an amazing thing. But I always claim, and I haven't had anybody prove me wrong. I says there was one guy on the team that never came off the field. Offense, defense, kickoff return, punt return, and that was me.
Yeah.
You couldn't wear me out. I think I was as strong on the fourth quarter as I was the first quarter, maybe stronger. But I was on every special team and offense and defense, and I wasn't the star on either one or any of them. But I knew my role. Bob Swears ran for record mileage, and Mark Stevenson ran second place behind him, unbelievable yards. And I would say I was third, but I didn't have near the yards they did. But uh, I didn't have the carries, but I was a great blocker. And in the wing T offense, that wing back has a real key play in blocking downfield and making room for guys that make a move.
Yeah.
And I could get in front of a guy and hold him up so Swears could outmaneuver him. And we always said in that football team, we scored on the first drive of every game.
Yeah.
We scored on the first drive of every game we played. And sometimes it was in the first series of plays. And we said, just line them up and try to stop us. They
Yeah.
could not stop us. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Every time I talk about the 73 team, my uncle, I bring him up. Bruce Van Tiger for Buffalo Center. He was a
Okay.
stud athlete, played football at Nyack till an injury ended his career, but just saw him at a family reunion last month. And the joke is always every time you say the name Bob Swears, my back starts to hurt because he goes, that guy was hard to bring down if you could catch him, or if he just happened to be running in front of you. It's like, well, I'm either going to let him by me or he's going to run me over. So, um,
I had to tackle Bob Swears because I'd play on defense and he'd play on offense on scrimmage, and Bob Sanger would have us line up and would do that. And holy cow, Bob Swears he was the hardest guy to tackle. I mean,
yeah,
he just run you over. And of course, I was 128 pounds and one of the smallest guys on the team. And Bob was he pushing 200, I think, 205 probably, and strong. And he'd get them legs moving, and I'd try to tackle him low. I never tackle him high. I always tackle him low, and I could take him down. So, but those were good days.
it hurt though a little bit. He was fast and strong and he had it all. But
Yep.
then Jim Deemer still has school records for passing 50 years later. Um, just just a great group of guys, and I know a proud group of guys. That 73 team gets brought up, and there's a lot of pride in that team being the first one. Because Coach Sanger didn't have a lot of success his first 4 or 5 years. He really
Oh no.
struggled to get things going, and then he won that title. And then there were some average years until '84, and then since '84 we've been
At the
consistently playing for titles. So just to have that first team is really special. I know that meant a lot to Coach, and it means a lot to you guys as well.
Yeah, when I moved there, they had I recall Coach or the athletic director was Steve Everett, I believe.
Yep.
And I think looking at back at the records, they hadn't had a winning season in like 10 years before we won the state.
Yep.
And so there wasn't a winning tradition before that. And I know it was same coach and same playbook. It was an interesting thing.
Yep. Steve Everett won 5 straight conference titles when he was the football coach. 58 through 62, he won five, I believe those are the years. 5 straight titles. He gave it up. And then a couple other guys came in before Sanger and couldn't quite replicate that success.
Yeah.
Sanger started off kind of slow, 1-7, 1-8, 1-7, 3-5, I believe, and then boom, 10-0 state champs, and
Yeah.
just kind of a cool story because yeah, the year before it wasn't like you guys just missed the playoffs or lost in the title game. It was losing record, and then to go from that to not just state champs, but dominating state champs. The only close game you guys had was a 20-16 win over Forest City, and they were
Yeah.
a 3A school, loaded with athletes at the time. Just
We had to, we just eked that one out. I tell you what, they were
yeah,
knocking on the goal line inside the 10-yard line, and they tried three passes to get into the end zone. And I remember Mark Stevenson batted one down, maybe two, and I batted another one down that was a sure touchdown. I got my hand on it and batted that one down, and we held them out to win that game. And That was as close as we anybody got to us.
And back in that time with the playoff format, a loss there means you probably didn't even make the playoffs, honestly.
We wouldn't have made it, yeah, because there was only four teams in the state that made the playoff in our class, and
Yep.
there was only four classes.
Four classes. Now there's seven, and you get 32 per team per class.
Yep.
Just different world. And then I always like to bring up the point when we're talking about this team. The Kanawha team that season was 9-0. They had the highest scoring offense in the entire state, regardless of class. You guys were the second highest scoring team, regardless of class. And I always throw out that hypothetical, like, what if Britt and
Yeah,
Kanawha were already combined at that time? That would be just, there
man,
wouldn't be enough spots for people. That's the thing.
that's right.
Yeah.
Or if we'd have played each other, that would have been interesting.
Because
That
they
would have been
played in 1969, Britt and
okay.
Kanawha did, and neither team was anywhere near the level they were in 73, but they're just, you talk about platooning, you'd have to like half platoon just to get guys on the field. There wouldn't be space, wouldn't be room. So,
That's right. So,
yep.
well,
Yep. Let's talk about Ron Meyer real quick. Coach Sanger gets all the accolades. He gets all the, he was the head coach, of course. But Ron Meyer was his assistant in football. He was Al De Leon's assistant in wrestling. I just always like, when you get a chance to talk about Ron Meyer, let's talk about him. So, what do you remember about him being the assistant coach?
he was kind of the backfield coach, as I recall, and working with us on defense back, and always was he was always positive, and I always thought he was kind of he was probably what made some of the head coaches look even better.
Yeah.
He was always working with us, skill level, and I remember my senior year, he was coaching us backfields, and we were doing cutaways and things like that, just dropping and up and down. And I could take it like most anybody could, and maybe better, just dropping flat out and jumping back up. I was quick as a cat, and he looked at me. He says, "Did you ever think about going out for wrestling?" And I said, "Well, I got started in basketball and just kind of stuck with it." And he says, "You'd have been a good wrestler." And I think I could have been a good wrestler, but I'll never know.
Yeah.
I've got a grandson now that is one of the. He's only 10, and he's been wrestling Pee Wee for 5 years now, and he's one of the top wrestlers in his weight class. He goes to Winterset, and he's a great skill wrestler. So it's kind of fun to watch him. Looks like a little me out there.
Yeah. Well, talk about no room for people. The wrestling room back when you were in high school, you would have been fighting with four different guys for a varsity spot at your weight, probably.
Well, when I moved to Britt my sophomore year, right after football, I approached Al De Leon, and I had a conversation with him in his room, in the Spanish room. I says, "Coach," I says, "I'm thinking about going out for wrestling." He says, "What do you weigh?" I says, "I weigh 123 pounds." I'm a sophomore, wet. I'm 123 pounds. He says, "Well," he says, "I got Richie Nelson coming back at 112. He's a state runner up. I got Dave Howlett coming back. He's a state champion. I got Mark Stevenson in there. I got, oh, I can't remember who else. He had it loaded, and that was
Yep.
lower weight numbers." And he says, "Have you ever wrestled before?" I says, "Only in gym class." He said, "You might just want to stay out for basketball," he says. And so I'll never know if I could have been a good wrestler, but he was probably right. They
Yeah.
were loaded with talent,
Yeah.
loaded with talent.
And knowing the day, I didn't know Al real well, but just knowing his legacy, it's like that wasn't like, I don't need you, I don't want you, son. It was just like legitimately, we're
Yeah,
pretty good. Like,
we're
you
pretty good.
you want to,
He probably says, and the basketball team could use you, probably.
yeah,
I mean,
like you could
they're
bust
probably
your tail in the wrestling room and never see the mat. It's just,
exactly.
or you could go start on the basketball team, and both teams are gonna be just fine.
It's
You're
fine
gonna
or
you're gonna
good.
help out
Yeah,
the basketball team. That's crazy. It's just the
yeah,
whole like Billy Dahlman story of being an All-American in college but never wrestling in high school because the team was so deep. And there was a couple other guys that in that situation where like any
yeah.
other school in the conference, maybe besides Osage, they would have been starters and probably had a good run at districts and state if they had that chance. But there was just so many guys that could be in that
Could
spot.
They were good. They were
Yep.
fabulous. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, let's go to track here. This is kind of your main sport, obviously, and a big reason why you're going into the Hall of Fame. You came here as a sophomore, so 1972 would have been your first track season.
Right.
You guys went to the indoor state meet that year. You, Bob Swears, Chuck Swears, and Venice Brown took sixth in the mile relay. What do you remember about that indoor state meet? Because I don't remember hearing that being much of a thing, even when I was in high school.
I have to scratch my memory banks here too to try to remember that. My memory tells me it was down at Lamoni
Okay.
at Graceland College. They had a indoor track and they had bleachers in the middle of it and everything else, so you couldn't see across. You couldn't see across who was running where and things. And it was just kind of like, okay, I'm a sophomore. We made that trip down there that morning and we ran that and I didn't know much about state indoor track either, and I don't know if they have it anymore or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience of running against some really good competition down there from all different classes, and it was a good experience to get us really thinking about track when the snow's still on the ground in northern Iowa.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And knowing Coach Sanger, you might have been scooping it off the track illegally just to get the track going, get out there running. He's been known to do that in the past a little bit. So, um, what was the difference between you said you Humboldt had a very good track program, and you were kind of at that beginning stage of Britt and West Hancock becoming a very recognizable track program. But what was the difference between Humboldt and Britt when you got to Britt?
Well, physical facilities was quite a bit different. The track at Humboldt, of course, it was a cinder track. We ran on all cinder tracks back in the day, and Humboldt had a nice, very nice cinder track, well manicured, everything around the football field. And went up to Britt, and the track we had around the football field at that time was about 2 foot lower than the football field. So if we got a half an inch of rain, we had a moat around the football field and it was only about usable for 2 or 3 lanes. And at the time when I got there, now Coach Sanger brought his little Ford tractor up there with a blade, and he was trying to make that track a lot nicer, and he made it up into about 4, 5, 6 lanes, and we never really did have a. It wasn't good enough to have a relays at or a track meet at. I think we had a couple of duels. I would call them duels. I think we had Kanawha come up one, I think it was my senior year or junior year. And they had some really good runners
Yeah.
at that time as well. And I remember Coach Sanger made me run. Oh, she's. I think we ran the 2 mile relay, and then he ran me in the uh, 400 or something like that, and anchored the sprint relay. And he said, "Okay, Doug, you're up next. You're going to run the open half now." And I think these two Kanawha guys were just laying for me. I got beat. I got beat by a couple of Kanawha guys because I was beat. I mean, I was wore out, and I think I even ran 100-yard dash or something on that dual meet because we all rules were off at that on that dual meet. We just to run and have a good practice is what we were doing. But
Yeah.
the track facility there at Britt was really had a lot to be desired. And what I remember, one of the things I remember first in my sophomore year was running the hallways uh, when it was practice before we could even run outside. And those sharp hallways and the doorways, we would run past the locker rooms and back around the science rooms and back out by the trophy case and back around the home ec room and just sharp corners and just hurt our ankles and we were getting shin splints and everything else. But Coach Sanger was going to make us work and get in shape before the season we could go outside.
Yeah.
And I remember single filing just like a bunch of rats running around that thing. I mean, it was hard work. Coach could see us every lap. I don't know how many laps it was for a mile, but it was a lot. So it
Yeah.
was sharp turns.
There was no days off with Coach Sanger.
There was no days off. That's right.
Yeah. You did not make it to state as a sophomore. Do you remember how close you were to getting to state?
I believe, I started off, led off on probably the 2 mile relay, And as a sophomore, they always had me lead off, and usually it was I would lead off and I'd hand off to I can't remember, Vinnie Brown or somebody, and then Skip Miller was running at the time, and maybe Hughes was running at the time too. Pat Hughes, maybe,
Pat
I can't
Hughes.
remember for sure. And I think we got third place or something. We had to get second place to get to state, and we just missed going to state. And back in those days, the rules were in track were a little different than what they are now, I believe. We had a limitation on the distance you could run and how many events you could run. You could run 3 running events at the time, and only one of them, or if you ran 2 over a quarter, you couldn't run a third unless it was a 100-yard dash or something. It was crazy. I mean, I could run a quarter and a half. And then the other race I'd have to run if it was something that had to be a 200-meter or something. You were really limited how many events you could run. Whereas I think today it's a little more, if you can run it, you can run it, I think.
Yeah, it's
Almost.
four events, and they can all be like it used to be three, but one had to be fourth could be a field event. I'm pretty sure now you can run 4 events, and they can all be running, and it doesn't matter the distance. So,
Yeah. It's a little easier to keep track of. I can remember
yeah.
one time in junior high, I was really good in junior high too, eighth and ninth grade at Humboldt. We run down Fort Dodge, and I had a coach that was a good coach, but he'd lose track of how many times he'd make me run. And I ran a couple on one extra race, and we lost that race, and then we lost the trophy too because of that. But
Yeah.
but we had
Whoops.
to keep track of what you ran really carefully.
Yeah,
So
sounds like it. So 73 would have been your junior year. So this was right before you guys won the football title. You were state runner-ups. Would be our first track trophy in school history. Maurice Orange City won the state title that year with 36 points. We scored 28.
yep,
Terry Harmdirks was third in the 100 dash. Al Jurgens made it in the pole vault, which we tend to forget that there used to be the pole vault in high school track. That's just
exactly.
a wild event. Same with the javelin throw. Uh, John Miller made it in the shot. Uh,
Yep.
Dave Zroslik made it in the mile run. And the 880-yard relay team was state runner-up. They got second. That was Leonard Piestick, Scott Harvey, Bob Swears, and Terry Harmdirks. And then that same team also was runner-up in the 440-yard relay. And then your mile medley team, take out Terry and add you into it. You guys were second, and those 3 seconds and a third got you those 28 points. What are some memories of taking home that trophy?
Well, that was a kind of a breakout season for our track team. Harmdirks was one of the most beautiful runners, sprinters that I'd ever been around, and I've been around a lot of sprinters through college and stuff. But Terry Harmdirks could glide like a gazelle. I mean, he had a beautiful stride, and he was fast. He had long hair, and that was flowing at the time. So he was the anchor on those sprint relays, and he would just flash. And the other guys would hand him the baton anywhere close, and he would take it home. But Maurice of Orange City had a fabulous team, and they got first in both those sprint relays. And I believe that Britt actually broke the state record, but they got second
Yeah.
in that year, and in those 2 sprint relays. Those guys were really good. Sprint medley, I anchored that, and it's amazing. You run a race sometimes, and you just go with the flow. I never ran for times in my career as a track guy. I didn't have a pace I was going to be at, say at the 200-meter mark or the 400-meter mark. My goal was to beat the competition,
Yeah.
not to get the best time. There's 2 different things going on there, and so I would run with the pack, and my forte was I could out sprint anybody to the end. I mean, nobody was going to out sprint me to the end, and if I was close, anywhere close, I could get them. And but there was one guy that I couldn't quite get on that one. We got second place at the state, but you gave us the confidence, all of us, that we can do this. We can run with the best. And so we were determined to come back next year and win it all. We were going to
Well,
win it
that
all.
is exactly what happened that next year, 1974, your senior year. You guys became the first of eight, if I, hopefully I'm not forgetting any. I just did this off the top of my head. Eight team titles in school history in track. You guys in 74, Kanawha in 78 and 79, West Hancock boys in 92, West Hancock girls in 96, West Hancock boys in 07 and 08, and then the West Hancock girls in 2016. So a real steep tradition in track. And then you add in just as many runner-ups, if not more, if just kind of
Yeah.
going off the top of my head without looking at my stuff. That team, you had Lou Banker in the long jump. I could not find his placing, if at all. Do you remember how Lou did in the long jump?
He didn't place in the top six, but he was a great long jumper. A little bit of a wild man running down, and but he would. I don't remember the actual distance either,
Yeah.
but he was a 20 foot plus long jumper, I believe,
Yeah.
and he was there in the long jump. Who else was there? I'm trying to get
We
the
got
yearbook.
Leonard Piestick got fourth in the 100-yard dash.
Yeah,
Uh, the 1 mile medley relay team got fifth. That would be Al Love, Scott Harvey, Bob Swears, and Dave Howlett. And then everything else was state champions. You were a state champ in the 880-yard run with a time of 155.9. The 2 mile relay team of Dave Zaroslik, Dave Howlett, Jim Dummett, and Doug Pooch were state champs. The 880-yard relay was state champs. That was Leonard Piestick, Al Love, Scott Harvey, and Bob Swears. And then, unless I put this in wrong, I'm feeling like I made a mistake somewhere. Oh, yeah.
same group.
Your 2 mile relay was state champs. You, Dummett, Howlett, and Zroslik. And then yeah, the 880 was Leonard, Al, Scott, and Bob state champs. And then the 440-yard relay was Leonard, Al, Scott, Harvey, and Bob Swears were also state champs. I think I got that right.
Yeah,
Just what a team.
yeah.
Talk about winning that title.
Well, it was exciting because we knew we had a good team, but we just didn't know how good. Each track meet leading up to the state or the conference, as a team, we didn't have quite enough points usually in the like the Eagle relays and the other Bison relays we went to. I don't think we won. Yeah, we got second, or we would get second place as a team every time because we just didn't have quite enough depth. But when you get to state and you got the elite athletes and the things start spreading out a little bit, we had the runners to win the state going away.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Leonard Piestick, bless his heart, he was so fast out of the blocks. I remember one time I tried running second in the 440 relay, and I'm really slow out of the blocks compared to him, and he ran over me. I think he handed it off backwards to me, and but once I get going, I could go pretty fast. I remember Al Love was really really fast out of the blocks too. He was probably the fastest 40-yard dash guy I've ever seen. In fact, I ran him a 100-yard dash one time, and he was 10 yards ahead of me at the 50-yard mark,
Yeah.
but I beat him at the 100-yard mark because I could just stride past him, and he looked at me like, "Oh, don't you take me, don't you take me," and I took him at the 100-yard mark, but he was at literally 10 yards ahead of me at the 50-yard line, and Swears was just a terror on the anchor. Ron, Bob was just stride for stride, just like a football player coming down the line, and nobody got in his way. So Dave Howlett came out for track that year and made the year before, and really hadn't had a lot of track history, but he was a tough wrestler and he knew how to train and was a great training partner. And Dave Zroslik was a great miler and half miler. Those guys, we had some great practices. We pushed each other in practice so hard. I mean, some of it, I didn't puke much, but some of the other guys did. And Sanger didn't have to push us too hard because we pushed ourselves.
Yeah.
But Sanger got us to push ourselves somehow. I don't know how he did it. I remember Forest City relays. Um, I got the baton. I think we were trying to get jockey to get points. And so we would change people around in the relays. And we had some guys running the 2 mile relay that weren't as fast as the top four. And I got the baton. And those days, a lot of times the finish line wasn't at the end of the straightaway, it was at the 50-yard line on most tracks. The finish yard was on the 50-yard line. I got the baton as the anchor of the 2 mile relay in Forest City. And I looked up and the lead guys were already turning the corner. So I'm 50 yards behind. And I take off, do my first lap. I don't know, don't matter what time it was, but I'm moving along pretty good. I'm making some ground up on them. They're still 25, 30 yards ahead of me. And I kind of look up in the stand and Bob Sanger, I knew where he was sitting. I looked over there and went through the first quarter mark. I looked at him and he looked at me. He says, Pooch, go get him. That's all he said. Go
Yep.
get him. I says, okay, I'm going to get those guys. And sure enough, by the end of the next lap, I got them. I gave those guys a 50-yard head start for their best half milers, and I could beat them. So, but and then I ran a second meet. I think I did the sprint medley or something like that. And I got the same thing. I'm way behind, and I go around the first lap. Coach Sanger says, "Go get them." I says, "Okay." And sure enough,
Yeah.
I got
The
I
funny
beat him
thing
to the
is,
finish.
like, that's young Bob Stanger, who's still just kind of establishing himself as a coach, essentially. By the time I got to high school, he's a legend. He is an absolute,
Right.
like pillar of the community and the statewide known coach. He said something, yes, sir. Like there was just that's Bob Sanger. He wants me to do something, I'm doing it. You
Yeah.
guys back then weren't much younger than him per se, just a handful of years, and could have been easy for a bunch of young high school kids to be like, I'm not listening to the coach or whatever. And he just, from a young age, he just had a way of
He had a way of
getting,
getting the most out of us.
yeah, and a lot of young coaches don't have that, and then they don't stick around long enough to know if they do have it or not. Like I'm going into year 8 of being a high school golf coach, and I'm just feeling like I'm starting to get into my groove pretty well. And I know so many coaches that give it up after 3, 4, 5 years because they're like, well, it's not worth the time. I don't get paid enough. I'm not putting up with parents anymore. And um, coach was
Yeah.
just so focused on coaching his athletes and all the other stuff. He was so good at just not worrying about little stuff. He just focused on getting the most out of his athletes, and that
He
obviously
did.
paid off over 52 years. So,
He did. He had a way. I'll tell you a story about in football one time. We were scrimmaging each other and we're kind of pansying around, and he says, give me the ball. He played fullback,
yeah.
no pads. We got helmets on and pads. He says, give me the ball. Defense, stop me. And he just ran right over us. I mean, he says, "Now that's how you run over somebody, Bob." And he's showing Bob Swears how to run over somebody. And okay, you guys tackle me now. And this guy's coaches with no pads on, and geez, he was hurting us. So he said, "That's how you do it." So it
Yep.
was fun.
Yep. Oh, he was a great dude, great coach, and we miss him a lot.
You
You
bet.
guys won the meet with 41 team points, 6 events placed. Like I said, most of them were state champs. Just your class, just a bunch of winners. You talk about Dave Howlett, state champ
Yeah.
in football, state champ, 4-time qualifier in wrestling, goes to track, wins a state title as a team and individual. Just
Yeah.
overall great athlete.
Yeah.
All those guys mixed in there on in all the sports at the conference level as well. You guys were winning conference titles. It was just you guys were good. It was one of those groups that um, a lot of schools those only come around every 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
The cool part now at West Hancock, especially on the football side, is we got kids just the next group up is the next best group, and it's just been a lot of fun. But
Yeah. I don't know how
back,
they do it. Yeah.
yeah, it's do you keep up on West Hancock sports?
Yeah, I watch the scores on the footballs and try to get up there maybe once a year. I was funny. A year ago, I ran up. I says, "Okay, springtime. I'm planting season. It's kind of cold. I heard they're having Britt relays, and so I said, okay, I'm going to work my way up north to our Ames, and I'm going to work my way up to Britt. Go to that Britt relays, and son of a gun, they canceled the meet.
Yeah.
And I was there, and they just had a practice, and I talked to the coach. I can't remember who the coach was. It wasn't Sanger at that time. And he says, "Yeah, we're getting ready for districts, and we didn't want to have athletes work in this cold weather." And I'm thinking, okay. So I watched him practice a little bit, and then I went in the weight room, which we never had a weight room when we were in high school.
Yeah.
There was no weights at high school, and we're just hardworking kids that I was a farm kid, help bale hay or whatever it was.
Yeah.
No weights ever. And I went in the weight room in there, and they got the track records up on the wall.
Yeah.
And I went up there and I looked, and there's guys in there lifting weights and this. I said, "Oh, there's my name up there still, from 1974." And I tapped a couple of kids on the shoulder, and I said, "What do you run?" He said, "Well, I run a quarter or half." And I don't remember their names. I says, "That's my name up there." I was pretty fun to show that. And they converted it to 800 meters at 155.2.
Yep.
And and uh, and they thought that was pretty cool. That old guy was still kicking. So
Yeah.
one of the older records up there. There's one older than my record up there, though. There's an old one up there.
Herschel Morris, for Kanawha, still has the mile record from 1931. That's still on the record board. He got put into the Hall of Fame 2 years ago now, um, posthumously. But he died at 100 years old about 10, 12 years ago. He still has the mile record for our schools.
That's amazing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
an old record. There was a one meet my senior year. Droslik and I were going to switch. He was going to run the open half, and I was going to run the open mile,
Yeah.
just to see if I could get that mile record. But then we had 10 inches of snow, and that canceled that track
Yeah.
meet. So I never got to run the mile in high school. I
Yeah.
did run it in college.
Yeah. You talked about going to the Britt relays. You know what that's called now? It's actually the Bob Sanger relays.
Okay,
They named it
sure.
after Coach a handful of years ago, and I'm pretty sure it's gotten canceled more than they've had it. It just terrible timing. I feel like almost every year I
Okay.
look on Bound, I'm like, oh, that got canceled. But what do you do? That's springtime in Iowa. So, um,
That spring in Iowa, they're going to lose a track meet or two. But yeah, we never ran on a hard surface until state or Drake, and we always had cinders or dirt or brick or something, crushed brick, and once because I never went under 2 minutes until state with a hard surface.
with a better surface, definitely.
That was part of it in the state meet and everything. But 202 was my best on cinders, and but I never ran for time. I ran to win,
Yeah.
and that's what it took to win. That's what I would run. So
Yeah. And like talking to the Sanger brothers about what their dad would always talk about, those guys would sit around and talk high school sports all the time. And I go out up to Mark's house when I'm back home, and what do we talk about? We talk about high school sports. When I
yeah,
was talking to Kevin and Mark, they're on the track football committee for the Hall of Fame. This year was a year to put in someone for track, and I told you this before we recorded. Um, they both immediately said Doug Pooch. And, if you look at just amounts of state championships, there's others that have maybe a few more than you. But they said our dad, Bob, always talked about Doug Pooch, and sometimes he talked about Doug more than he talked about Jeff Nielsen and Nate
great
Smith.
runner.
And he
Yeah,
said and then I talked to Coach Timmerman, and they said Coach Sanger always used the words ferocious and tenacious when they talked about you as a track runner. He's like, that dude just ran hard. He just willed himself to victories time after time. So, um, that's why one other reason why we're sitting here talking to you about being a 2025 Hall of Famer is you just the work ethic you had and the way you went about business on the track was something that Coach Sanger talked about for 45 plus years after you were graduated. It was always Doug Pooch was just one of the toughest, one of the best runners I ever had. Um, and
that's true. I mean, nobody was going to beat me. I mean, it was just that it's a mindset that you want to my strategy on the half mile was, okay, I'll run with you the first quarter. I'm going to move up in the pack with 200 meters to go, and then I'm going to beat you now.
Yeah.
I'm in position to win. I'm going to out sprint you, and because you don't know, maybe you don't know this, but I got third in the conference in the 200, 220. And it was just kind of a throw me in there, coach, and see what I could do. And I got third in the conference in my senior year, and I think Scott Harvey won it. But, shoot, I'm so slow out of the blocks. I mean, I might as well not even use blocks. And I still got third. So, but that was fun.
Yeah, and Coach Sanger, I've said this on so many episodes talking about track. That guy knew how to accumulate points. He could find every way to get a point here, a couple points here. So I'm sure some of that was just we want to win the conference, we want to get, top
Yeah.
three or whatever. Hey, you got an event open. If you get third or fourth, you're going to give us an extra couple points, and that's going to, he was a mastermind at that.
And few people would believe it, but I also got points in the field event
Yeah,
in the discus throw.
really.
Uh, I was probably the smallest guy I'm sure I was the smallest guy in the field. Shoot, I'm 5'8.5", and I was 125, 130 pounds at the max. And I'm throwing the discus because I was looking for something to keep my mind busy before running events. And John Swenson and I throw the discus, and every once in a while I'd get a third or fourth or fifth or sixth place finish, and I was happy. I mean, I'm contributing points here, so
There you go.
and that's the only field event I could do was the discus.
Did you ever
So
do that at districts to try to get to state, or did you just focus on running by that point?
I threw at districts, but I wasn't that good.
Yeah.
I wasn't close to getting a record or anything like that. Every once in a while, I get lucky and I can throw it about 126 feet, and once in a while that'd be good enough for fifth or sixth place in some of
Yeah.
these smaller meets, but not to get to districts or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So after high school, you graduate, you go to Iowa State. You already talked about the Iowa State coach kind of tracked you down at state track.
Yep.
You ran track and field and cross country. You got to be a part of the first cross country team in 45 years to win a conference title in Ames.
Yep.
Then you won some regular season races as a Cyclone. Talk a little bit here about running at the D1 level. What was the difference there?
It's a different thing. It's a 365-day training schedule.
Yeah.
We averaged I averaged 10 miles a day the summer before my freshman year at Iowa State. So after I got the state track team, they put me on a regime, and I remember going from my home in south side of Britt, and I'd run out to is it Stilson out there out west?
Stilson and Denhart are out that way, I think, right?
Yeah, we'd run out to Stilson and back, and try to get 10 miles in, and I was dating Lori Hildebrand, and sometimes she would ride her horse on the gravel roads, and I'd go out and run 10 miles on the gravel roads, and she'd ride her horse beside me. Najat was his name, and she'd accompany me because I was pretty bored running 10 miles. I'd never run that far in my life. And other times she'd jump on my motorcycle and pace me with my motorcycle out on the gravel road or on the blacktop or whatever. And 10 miles a day then. So we had to run a 10-mile time trial when we got to college in August. We had to do it in 60 minutes. So we had to run a six minute pace for 10
Ooh.
miles in order to be on the team. And so there were some guys that could really run, and obviously I wasn't one of the fastest guys or long distance guys, but I remember one of the first races I went through on the golf course there at Ames and up and down the hills and around and go through the first mile of a 4-mile race. And they says, okay, 420, 422, 423. And I'm thinking that would have been a school record at Britt. And I got 4 more miles to go.
Ugh.
And talk about competition and stuff. And I wasn't one of the top runners in cross country, but I was one of the ones that pushed them up the hill. And that was fun to have. I got a Big 8 watch, and the team did really well. So that was fun being part of that. And then on the track, we ran indoor track starting in December. just as soon as cross country was over. And we'd run anywhere from, we ran at Minnesota, Nebraska, Kansas, Wisconsin, Texas, uh, Missouri, Arkansas. Uh, we ran all over the place, and a really great bunch of guys. And kind of Iowa State was kind of like Britt, just didn't have a real lot of great success until late 70s, 80s. And now they're like, they're up there always in nationals now. And I ended up running indoors and outdoors, mostly the 600 to 1,000 meters, uh, half miles. And I got my time down to about 151 for a half mile. And I had a Kenyan teammate, David Career from Cedar Rapids, and he was an All-American. He could run 151 backwards. I swear that guy was just amazing capacity. And I'll never forget, we would kill ourselves. We'd have to run 22:20s with a 30-second interval. We'd have to run them in 23 or 24, turn around 30 seconds later, do another one. We'd do 20 of them. That was our main workout. After we had to run 6 miles in the morning and AM on yourself. We ran 6 miles as a warm up,
Ooh,
and then we ran 22:20s, and then we would cool down with another 3 mile run, all at hard pace. But David Career would go halfway through those 22:20s, and he'd say, "That's enough," and he would walk off. He says, "I'm good," and coach wouldn't get after him. He knew what he was doing. But of course, I'm from the farm, and I'm a gutsy runner, and I'm going to do it all. We did it all. We just out there killing ourselves.
yeah.
But David Career would step on the track, and he could run a 146, 800 meters. And it looked like he was just walking. And it's just amazing runners. So I got to be around some of those guys, ran Drake relays several times. I ran against the best half milers and milers in the country, and didn't always win, but boy, we gave him a run for the money. And I did win some meets, and 1,500 meter. I ran that one time. It converted to a 409 mile, which was pretty good. Not world class or anything, but for me, a 409 miles pretty good for a half miler.
That's really good. Do you still keep in contact with some of those Iowa State teammates?
Yeah, we do. Several of us are in agriculture. One's a veterinarian, and David Career is actually an agronomist like I am, but he's in Kenya, back in Kenya and stuff. And see Brian Darrow, let's see some of those guys. Yeah, yeah, I keep in contact with a few of those guys do too. I probably keep more in contact with my high school friends though,
Yeah,
as Ross Lake and uh, Dave Howlett, Swenson's, those guys. I mean, we have pretty good class reunions and have a lot of good memories there too.
good. Well, perfect time for you to get back together with those buddies would be about a month from now. Um,
Yeah.
August 29th, West Hancock Hall of Fame, right there in Britt. Be great to see all those guys again. Hopefully they can come out and support you as you're going to get inducted to the Hall of Fame. One other event I want to plug here is the Dave Fink Foundation golf outing, which will be in early September. Dave Fink was a coach in Britt at West Hancock when I was in high school. He passed away about 7, 8 years ago of a heart attack. Just an awesome, positive dude. I play in the golf tournament. Started last year, and I'm hoping to do it every year. So you can get out to that. Coming up next Friday, August 8th, is the first ever alumni gathering. It'll be the Friday of Hobo Days. It used to be the alumni banquet. Now we're switching it to just a gathering. So we are encouraging all alumni to get back to Britt. It'll be at the Britt Golf Course starting at 5 o'clock. Come and go as you can. We're going to honor Ren Kalsdorf, Denny Brum, and Doug Dawn as our award winners this year. Then, yeah, we got the Hall of Fame August 29th that Doug will be inducted into, along with Lois De Leon, Pat Kelly, Jeff Kelly, the 1952 Kanawha baseball team, and I'm forgetting one right now off the top of my head. Um, it'll come to me, but it's out there. You know who's all going in there. That'll be the night of August 29th at the football game, and right after the game at the Britt Golf Course. And then the next day, we're doing the first ever Britt West Hancock Wrestling alumni get together for any fan, mat maid, cheerleader, wrestler, parent, anyone that was ever a part of West Hancock Britt Wrestling wants to come out. Good fundraiser for new wall mats. If you were at the school and you maybe went to the old wrestling room, um, which also serves as the football locker room in the fall, those wall mats are like falling off the wall. They're flimsy and beat up. We're going to buy new ones. And we're also going to put some cool signage up on those walls honoring all of our all conference, all district, all state players and our team accolades. So if you can get out to any of those events, that'd be awesome. There's just a lot of great ways to support Britt, Kanawha, and West Hancock right now. Oh, it's the 72-73 wrestling team. Sorry, I was like, man, that's going to drive me nuts till I think about that. Those other teams that are going in. Those are a bunch of your teammates, a bunch of your classmates as well that were on those teams. So anyway, that's my plug. Next up on the podcast, Jesse Barker here in a couple hours. Lana Wicks, Tony Morris, Alan Miller, and then Kristen Jenn are my next 5 episodes. And then hopefully along in there, we'll get some football playoff episodes like we do every year, talking about some Iowa high school football. So, Doug, any last minute things you want to throw out there? Plugs, thank yous to people, anyone you forgot to mention earlier. This is always your time to kind of wrap things up.
Well, it's always gratifying to look back at the success that Britt and West Hancock athletics have had. Takes a lot of people to make that happen. The teachers and the coaches, as I recall, the teachers really put up with a lot of us and really did do a great job of teaching us and all the other academics. The coaches, we had a great set of coaches. I don't know how whoever hired those guys to be our coaches was a genius because they worked together so well. They all had a vision of being great, and they instilled that in the students and the student athletes. And we didn't know we were that good. We just didn't know we were that good. But the coaches brought it out of us.
Your FFA teacher, I want to go back to, the guy from Kentucky.
Yeah,
How did he end up in Britt? That's always interesting
ah,
how people go
that's a
from.
good question. He lived just south of town at the curve there, and Al McPhee had several kids, and they were pretty active in school for a while and things. But I don't know where they ended up. But how he got to Britt, I'll never know. And because he wore cowboy boots and a big old cowboy hat, and he talked like a Kentuckian, and he didn't hide it at all. So he was a character. It was fun.
Yeah, it just makes you go like Kentucky, Britt, Iowa. Like, how does that
Yeah,
happen? Especially back then without the internet and other stuff where
yeah,
a newspaper ad doesn't just pop up in Kentucky for Britt, Iowa. Like,
exactly.
did he go
Yeah,
to
exactly.
college somewhere in the state there? But then again, sometimes you wonder, how do people from one state end up in another state for college when there's state schools right there? I don't know. It's
Hmm.
just kind of cool. That might be my next little project to figure out. So,
Figure that one out where he went. Yeah,
yeah.
why he
All
was
right,
there.
Doug. Well, I'll see you in a couple weeks up in Britt at the Hall of Fame. Make sure you're working
Right.
on that speech. Yeah, you're a
Yeah.
very good speaker, so I don't think that'll be a problem for you, right?
All right. Yeah. Well, that comes from that FFA training and stuff, I
There you
think.
go. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Like always, go Eagles.
Go Eagles. Thank you.
Thank you.